Here's something I learned the hard way. If you want to draw from your imagination like these guys, you can't do it by drawing like these guys. Because when they draw straight from their imagination, they are using the 30 plus years of experience under their belt, and they don't need construction because they can think it through all in their heads. As a colleague of Kinf Nung Gi writes, professional artists practice so much that they calculate the framing and shaping processes in their head. They don't skip over them. So then, how can we effectively build our skills to drawing from imagination? Well, I've broken down the process into 5 distinct levels. You can work through them progressively to build the skills that will allow you to draw directly in freehand like this. By practicing this way, I've seen consistent improvements in my ability to visualize space and draw what it is I want, and I think it'll do the same for you. So let's get into the demo. So at level 1, we have our basic forms. Fundamental to drawing from imagination is understanding that what you're really doing is manipulating form in perspective. So level 1 is about isolating just those 2 variables. Practice depicting the most basic forms you can in perspective. Now, as you can see here, you want to practice a variety of organizations. You can practice forms circulating one another. You can practice forms clustered or stacking. And then you can practice forms expanding in space. Now, each of these is an exercise in their own, and you can see much more about them in my video on 25 drawing exercises. Now, as you're doing these exercises, feel free to use a pen or pencil, because at this level, it's only about practicing the basic forms, and you don't have to hold yourself to a difficult medium like the brush pen. Even though you see Kinf Nung Gi and Peter Han using it, this isn't what they use their entire lives. You want to work with a forgiving medium at this stage, especially if you don't yet have the solid form of a primitive down yet. You really want to make sure that your form feels like it has volume, because that's going to be necessary as you apply these basic forms into clusters and later objects like buildings and cars, as you'll see here. So I want to make it clear that if you can do this, you're already drawing from imagination. You're just not drawing people and animals and stories from imagination. But this is effectively thinking about forms in perspective and depicting them accurately. Now, as we get into later stages, that's when you will expand into clothing and anatomy and storytelling. But make sure to get this level down well, because it is going to serve the foundation for the rest. As you can see, it provides the foundation for drawing anything like cars, buildings, and objects. After practicing these primitive forms in space, you'll find a lot more freedom in the later stages. Now, I want to be clear with the order of these levels. You need to exercise your cognitive capacity at a number of different levels so your brain gets used to tackling subjects that are harder than it's ready for, that are as easy as it's ready for, and all the levels in between. So take these 5 levels as a framework to jump around according to your skill at the time. Don't treat it as a single path ahead. Now, as we get into level 2, this is where most artists in the world reside. And it's the sketching stage. Because unless you're specifically trying to draw directly from your imagination like Kinf Nung Gi in a felt tip pen or a fountain pen, most artists are satisfied and can serve their creative purposes at the level of sketching. Sketching refers to a process of drawing that is iterative. It allows you to change your story and change your image as you go along. So that requires a certain type of medium. You can't sketch necessarily with a brush pen because it's a lot more unforgiving. So as you can see here, I'm working with a ballpoint pen, and I've changed my perspective and choice of subject a couple times. But at this level, you can do that. You are not beholden to a decisive line. The looseness of the ballpoint pen allows me to start a line and correct it if I think it's not right. You can also use a pencil at this stage. You can use an eraser. The whole point is that you're drawing from your imagination, but you're giving yourself the iterations to erase and improve your drawing. This is a standard workflow for most concept artists and most artists in the professional industry. This is the workflow that Peter DeSev uses, the workflow that Crash McCreary uses, and even Bobby Chu. These are all fantastic artists, and this level is not indicative of skill, it's indicative of how much difficulty it will be to create full-fledged illustrations from your imagination. As you'll see, this level often creates the best drawings because you give yourself the most room to iterate. You can make the most informed decisions because you can try something and go, no, I don't like it, I'll do something else. And as we get to level 3, that's when those liberties get taken away. Level 3 is when we get specifically into the territory of drawing directly from your imagination. Unlike the casual sketchers, you're only really doing this if you want to practice drawing like Kinf Nung Gi. Level 3 is the level of pre-construction. This is where you use boxes before drawing your scene to provide a placeholder for your perspective and form. And then you place objects and people within those predetermined boxes. Now, this helps you draw from imagination by reducing the amount of information you have to keep in your head. If you can see the boxes on the page, then you already know the perspective and the space that the object's going to take. But it still requires you to fill in the details of the character and the space from the basic perspective. You can also see here that I've changed to a brush pen because this level is much more decisive. At this stage, you are getting into direct drawing. That only refers to the inking stage or the direct drawing stage. As you're seeing me construct the mannequin and the boxes, you can be a little bit looser as you're creating the pre-construction. Now, you can increase or decrease the level of difficulty in this level by increasing or decreasing the level of detail of your boxes. For example, I used mostly boxes for this scene, but in this one, I'm creating full-fledged mannequins that I'm going to draw over. By creating full-fledged mannequins, I give myself a lot more information to draw directly on top of, leading to much more consistent figures. Now, level 4 is assisted freehand. As we get into level 4, we are continuously removing the support we get until we will reach just a pure blank page. And the support that we removed getting into level 4 is form. We are no longer giving ourselves boxes to work in space, we're only giving ourselves a perspective grid. And everything else, from the forms to the anatomy, must be drawn directly on top of this grid in perspective. As you can see here, with this perspective grid laid out, I've given myself enough information to know a vanishing point, a horizon line, and the scale of the scene. And it's my job to recall what I've studied and what I know about perspective to create a consistent scene unfolding in front of us. And you can do so largely with the rule that anything that crosses the horizon line will continue to cross the horizon line at the same or similar place. So as you can see here, a sitting character has his mouth cross the horizon line, so across the entire image, every character who's sitting down has their mouth or facial area cross the horizon line, and that helps provide a consistent perspective. Once again, this level is scalable. The amount of information you want to give yourself is based on the detail of your perspective grid. So in this example, I took away any of the perspective grid and just kept my horizon line. Now the horizon line helps me to know what level the camera is at, but I have to think about all the vanishing points and all the lines leading to that horizon line. Once again, raising the difficulty. But you can see at this stage, we are getting pretty close to drawing from our imagination like Kinf Nung Gi. We are using a brush pen, we have very little information to work off of, and we're drawing directly. The last step would be to purely draw from our imagination, and that is direct freehand. There's nothing to say here. It's just a blank page, and you have to practice what you've learned throughout each level and draw a scene directly from imagination in perspective. Now, if you can reverse engineer how we got here, you can start to do this more effectively. So at the very least, imagine a horizon line. All you have to do is think of a line on your page and let it ground your scene and let it direct the scale. Here you can see that there's a horizon line that's curved at an angle, but it helps to establish the consistency of the dogs and the characters in the scene. And the horizon line, by the way, is just above the dogs and right below the elbows. And I've included a few examples here to show you that there's no rules here. You just draw whatever comes to your mind and then play out the rules that you've practiced in the previous levels, the rules being perspective. Don't be distracted by this line here. I was going to draw it as a level 4 exercise, but I didn't, so it doesn't actually follow that line, so you could effectively ignore that. Once you get to this level, again, don't just stay here. You'll only improve this level by drawing a lot and thoroughly practicing the construction stage. As I'm drawing this from imagination, I'm constantly drawing objects through and through and trying to understand the form of objects in space and practicing drawing like this. Now, level 5 can be infinitely scaled in complexity and size until you get to Kinf Nung Gi level. Now that we've covered all the levels, let's recap some important things to remember as you do these. First and foremost, don't practice them chronologically. Don't finish levels 1 to 4 before you feel you're ready for level 5. Try them all and always go between all of them. For example, I always draw through my objects and practice specifically trying to deconstruct an object, and it helps me draw at level 5 direct freehand. But I also always draw directly freehand because that helps me to visualize better for the levels 3 and 4. For example, I practice like this, trying to create objects in space but drawing through them and really trying to understand the space I'm creating. As well, I'm drawing objects in construction in space. So this is like taking level 3 and not using a grid, but just drawing in mannequins. Once again, you see me drawing through my forms here, drawing through my forms here, drawing through my forms here. Another thing to keep in mind is to always practice observation, because drawing from imagination is a two-piece puzzle. You have to draw from your imagination, but you can only draw upon what you've already studied. So never neglect. And finally, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like or comment what you want to see next, because we're almost at 100K, and if you can get me there, that would be amazing. And if you subscribe before then, you're a real one. So thank you guys. The next videos will be in my new studio, so I'm so excited to share that. And thank you for everything so far. I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.